Released by Square Enix in 2012 on the Nintendo 3DS, series creator Tetsuya Nomura returns to create another installment in the best-selling series, Kingdom Hearts, which chronologically takes place directly after the events of Kingdom Hearts 2 and is the next game to actually progress the adventure of Sora. As Dream Drop Distance is the 7th game in the franchise, it takes the role of a familiar action RPG with flashy, even more fast-paced combat. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a RECAPitation. The game starts with a recollection of the many bonds in relation to Sora so far, and it's important to review the significant ones in connection with his heart. Sora himself has strong bonds with many friends, but within himself he also houses the heart of Ventus, his nobody Roxas, as well as Xiii. Now Xiii was a replica of Roxas that was forged from Sora's memories and the bond he shared when he temporarily housed Kairi's heart as well. In addition, he did house a Heartless, but this was taken down by a Data version of himself, whom he never met personally, but Data Sora is the one who awakened the memory of Ventus's heart within Sora nonetheless. When all this is revealed in Mickey's letter to Sora, Sora and Riku personally answer Yensid's call. Master Yensid informs them how Xehanort was a very talented and brilliant Keyblade master, and even after reawakening in a younger body, he was driven to answering questions of the power of the heart. His pursuit has always been the Keyblade War, and he has always been preparing and battling for its resurgence. He then notes how Sora and Riku, though self-taught Keyblade wielders with many victories under their belt, are still unpolished and unprepared for the coming fight. He asks their participation in the Mark of Mastery exam, which will test if either of them are fit to be named Keyblade Master and gain substantial new powers. He explains that the people Mickey mentioned in his letter need to be rescued from sorrow and slumber to oppose the coming darkness, and the power of a Keyblade Master can accomplish this. He reminds them that in the past they rescued many worlds that were devoured by darkness, but informed them that not all of them came back intact. In fact, many of them lie dormant, and special slumbering keyholes must be found to unlock them. 7 for now. In their slumbering state, they are harboring a special darkness manifested in the form of Dream Eaters. Nightmares are dark dream eaters and devour happy dreams, and spirits are dream eaters that eat nightmares. Both Sora and Riku agree to prove themselves, and the test begins immediately. Diving into the dreams of the hearts of these worlds, Sora and Riku find themselves first on a version of the Destiny Islands, but after a battle with Ursula separates them, they quickly open a keyhole and separately dive into the dreams of one of the sleeping worlds. Sora wakes to find himself in Traverse Town, sporting a younger look with different clothes. He calls out for Riku, but is called out instead by a newcomer, Neku Sakuraba, from the game The World Ends With You. Their introduction is cut short as they are attacked by nightmares. Neku counters with his own spirit, and after the fight, Sora agrees to befriend Neku and help him find his game partner, while he tries to find Riku as well. It turns out Neku was using Sora and delivers him to a man in a black coat, but objects to Sora getting hurt. Sora prepares to fight, but suddenly and uncontrollably drifts to sleep. At this same time, Riku wakes up in Traverse Town, sporting a haircut and a change of clothes. He encounters a boy named Joshua who is intrigued that Riku can travel between worlds without using dreams as a portal like he can. Explaining further, he states that any given world has multiple versions of itself, based on what people within it need. He asks Riku to help him find a girl named Rhyme, whose dreams he needs, and to incentivize, drops that Sora is likely in the other version of this world. As they work together, Joshua shows Riku how to give his dream shape and form his own Dream Eaters. They are ambushed by a boy named Bede, Rhyme's brother who is also looking for her, and as they sort things out afterwards, Riku now suddenly loses consciousness and falls asleep. Meanwhile, as Sora wakes up, he finds both Neku and the man in black coat gone. He explores new areas of Traverse Town he's never been to, and bumps into a young girl named Rhyme. Together, they find Neku, who apologizes to Sora for using him in the deal to return home. At the same time, Riku wakes up to find a girl named Shiki being chased by nightmares and, after rescuing her, helps her on her own search for Neku. Back with Sora, Rhyme suddenly vanishes, and the man in black returns to attack Sora and Neku with a large nightmare. After the fight, Joshua reveals himself accompanied by Rhyme. He explains that he's been keeping Rhyme safe and he has been using her dreams and his own as portals to other worlds, including this instance of Traverse Town. He explains to Sora the case of dreams and portals, and also mentions that the man in black likely has something to do with the split of the dream world. At this time, he can see Riku and his own circumstances. As Shiki runs ahead, the man in black steps in to startle Riku and unveil himself. However, he unleashes his own nightmare on Riku and gets away. Riku wins, and the two groups now face each other somewhat reunited. Joshua reminds them of their connections regardless of separation and flies away, revealing the sleeping keyhole to Traverse Town, which Riku and Sora both unlock. Next, Sora and Riku dive into La Cité des Cloches, where Sora first meets up with Quasimodo and helps him escape his misery as the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Riku also meets Esmeralda Gypsy and helps her escape the persecution of the hounding Frollo. During the fight with Frollo in his nightmare, Riku encounters the Man in Black again, but this time with the heartless Ansem. Their meeting is brief, and Ansem once again urges Riku to embrace the darkness, which Riku defies. Meanwhile, after the nightmares are dealt with, Sora sees Quasimodo out safely but runs into the Man in Black again, who mocks Sora for imprisoning people in his heart, even if unintentionally. Sora looks on and sees Vanitas for the first time, but he's never met him and thus does not recognize him. Afterwards, the keyhole appears and Sora unlocks it from within the church and Riku from outside. At this time, elsewhere, a flashback memory of his time in Organization 13 with Roxas wakens Lee in Radiant Garden. As he assesses the situation, he sees that former members of Radiant Garden that were in the organization are all being restored to being full people again, though notes that Braig and Isa, formerly Zigbar and Saix, are missing. Remembering how Yensid warned them that they may run into familiar faces that are but fragments in a dream and not the real person, Sora dives into Prankster's paradise where he spots his old traveling companion Jiminy Cricket. Jiminy's looking for Pinocchio, so Sora lends a hand, especially hearing how a Man in Black may be involved. As they give chase to a sighting of Pinocchio, they are led to a trap of nightmares that Sora fights his way out of. They eventually find the real Pinocchio in a circus tent, and after Sora rescues him, the Man in Black is seen again, this time accompanied by former Organization 13 leader and nobody, Xemnas. Again, it's a brief meeting and Xemnas taunts the similarity of Sora to the nobodies and leaves. Sora is then met by the Blue Fairy who tells him that Pinocchio and Jiminy are after Monstro the whale who has swallowed Geppetto, and he jumps into the sea after them. He's beaten to the punch by a nightmare that drags Monstro and his friends into darkness. Even after dealing with the nightmare, Sora washes ashore and realizes this dream is right before this world gets swallowed by darkness, and Monstro and his friends become the refugees he encountered way early in his first adventure. Nothing more he can do, he unlocks this world and moves on. At the same time, Riku wakes up inside Monstro the Whale where he finds Geppetto and Jiminy Cricket, though this dream version of Jiminy has never met Riku before. They tell Riku Pinocchio has been led away by a person in a black coat and Riku hurries off. Catching up to both of them, Riku halts the person in black who shocks Riku by revealing himself to be Riku back when Riku was on the side of darkness. However, they don't have a chance to exchange words as Dark Riku leaves. The real Riku sends Pinocchio off and Riku faces down the threat inside Monstro. It turns out it's a giant crab nightmare this time, and as Riku defeats it, he unlocks Monstro's keyhole and then moves on. Back with Lee, he, Evan, and Alias are still searching for clues on their reconstruction and their missing associates. Evan remarks that something else must be amiss, as if they didn't turn up here like the rest of them, then they would have appeared in the town for those without worlds, Traverse Town. Lee then volunteers to go out and find them, and has an idea how as he looks towards Ansem the Wise's notes and spies the door to darkness. Riku is first to dive into the next world, the Grid, where this is his first time in the digital world. He is immediately taken captive alongside another user, Sam, and taken to the games. There he is met by Clue, the program taking over the Grid and eager to jump into other worlds. Riku and Sam escape and help facilitate Sam's father and Quora in their escape from the Grid. However, Sora enters the Grid and recognizes it as Tron's world. He evades some guards and runs into Rinzler, but as he is met by Sam and crew, he is informed that Tron has been turned into Rinzler. As Sora tries to turn Tron back, he bumps into young Xehanort and Xemnas yet again, who drop that this system is the real original system of the grill that Ansem copied and Sora visited. Sora then runs into Clue, who wants Sora's Keyblade, but Sora takes this encounter as a chance to reprogram Tron and attempt to restore him. Unfortunately, it doesn't work, and as Rinzler is lost, Sora finds the world's keyhole, unlocks it, and moves on. Meanwhile, Riku helps Sam and friends reach the portal they seek in order to escape, and after dealing with another nightmare Clue, a keyhole appears that he unlocks. At this time, King Mickey receives a hostage message from Maleficent's Raven telling him that Queen Minnie has been taken hostage and demands his presence. Donald and Goofy accompany him back, and Master Yensid notes the strange timing of it all, attributing it to the plausibility of Xehanort's return. Suddenly, both Sora and Riku are recalled back to Traverse Town by Joshua, who explains that he needs their help with a troublesome nightmare that is best dealt by with those two, as well as coming to the conclusion that the two Traverse Towns are in fact not parallel worlds, but distinct dream worlds dreamt by two separate people. Sora teams up with Neku and Shiki, and Riku teams up with Beat and Rhyme, and together all of them combat the tricky cross-dimensional nightmare and defeat it. Per their theory, a second keyhole has appeared that is now unlocked. Meanwhile, Mickey, Donald, and Goofy stand off against Maleficent and Pete in Disney Castle. In exchange for Queen Minnie, Maleficent demands the data from all the worlds that's stored in the journals Mickey kept left over from the events of Kingdom Hearts Recoded. However, a sudden intervention by Lee distracts them all long enough for Minnie to break free on her own and reverse the situation. Maleficent and Pete take their leave, and the crew turns to their rescuer. Now making introductions to a surprised crowd, Lee steps out of the darkness to make himself known. In the next world, Sora and Riku finds themselves in the land of the Musketeers. Sora meets up with the younger Mickey, Goofy, and Donald, and the four of them team up to protect Princess Minnie from the clutches of dastardly Pete and the Beagle Boys, as well as various nightmares along the way. In a plot to become king himself, Pete kidnaps the princess and looks to end the Musketeers. Meanwhile, Riku arrives in the middle of that plot and rescues Princess Minnie. He gives chase to the Beagle Boys and foils the plot to end the Musketeers just in the nick of time, which somehow carried over interdimensionally. After being titled Royal Musketeer, Sora unlocks the keyhole on this side, and Riku follows in turn. Meanwhile, Lee explains what he knows to Yen Sid and the others, which all but confirms the return of Xehanort. Short of options that haven't already been thought of by Xehanort, Master Yen Sid agrees to send Lee off to unlock the ability to wield a Keyblade. Next, Sora and Riku find themselves inside Master Yen Sid's mysterious tower, but during a much earlier time when Mickey was still the Sorcerer's Apprentice. When dabbling in magic too strong for his own capacity, a strong musical nightmare came out and trapped Mickey in its symphony. Now, Sora and Riku dive into various Fantasia orchestrations to end the music and the nightmare. While inside the music, Sora is met by young Xehanort, who in passing tells Sora how foolish he is for not realizing the bigger picture yet. Moving on, young Xehanort seeks out Riku and chats a little for once. He reminds Riku how when he was a young boy, it was originally Riku who was gifted with the Keyblade, and on the day when the Destiny Islands was consumed, because of his decision to embrace the darkness instead, is why the power of the Keyblade passed on to Sora. He then notes that Riku really has found a way to trap darkness in his heart, and a person immune to darkness is of no use to them. Riku scoffs back, and deals with the demon of Bald Mountain before doing his part to end the curse and the nightmare. Unlocking the world from both sides, Sora and Riku have now unlocked the 7 keyholes for their test and move to return to reality. At this time, Mickey and the others ponder the progress of Lee in his Keyblade pursuit, but move on to more pressing thoughts like unraveling Xehanort's plot. They figure that in order for Xehanort to be able to affect Sora and Riku's dream diving since the start of the test in the Destiny Islands dream, then Xehanort must have been there when the Destiny Islands were lost to the darkness in the first place. Goofy questions if it's possible that Xehanort could be doing the same thing Sora and Riku are doing, that is, dive into the dreams of worlds yet unlocked and in essence be time traveling. Yen Sid replies that it's only possible, again, if Xehanort of the past was around physically at that point in time. However, Mickey quickly realizes that the time Xehanort was possessing Riku was a time when he was traveling without a body, which does make it possible to cross time. Realizing now that Sora and Riku are now being guided into a trap, Mickey remembers an old saying from Master Aqua and uses it to predict where the boys will end up. Sora is surprised to see himself in the world that never was, and wonders if the organization's world is one of those he has to unlock. He quickly corrects himself, but is still confused, to which Xigbar now comes in to enlighten him while still taking a jab at Roxas. Starting from the beginning, Xigbar explains that Sora is still sleeping because they've been controlling the course of the trip ever since the beginning. Like how he's able to go back in time to before his world was swallowed only because Sora himself was actually there, while so too was Xehanort. He reminds Sora that it was Xehanort whom he met so long ago before his adventure even began. Sora objects to the far-fetched idea, and Xigbar admits that it was precisely that implausibility that enabled it to work undetected at all. To prove that Sora is still sleeping, he merely points out that Sora is still in his dream form, but it doesn't matter anymore. He brings out a new Organization 13, who quickly subdues Sora, and Sora soon wakes to see a young Xehanort reveal to him how it all got started. Xehanort donned the brown robe when he cast off his physical form and wandered as just a heart, and this enabled him to connect with all incarnations of himself, past and present. Next, young Xehanort explains that coordinating with Xehanort's heart, which was also possessing Riku for a time, helped them to know what was going on with events and predict Sora's moves. Next, he shows him Traverse Town and illustrates how Sora has been here several times, both real and in dream, memories, and even datascapes. Finally, Sora finds himself in his real body, still in the world that never was, and follows along. He sees Naminé and rushes to catch her, but once he does, he suddenly sees Xiii, a version of himself he housed but has never actually met. He finds himself tearing up, and as Xiii runs off, he hears Riku's voice urging him to wake up. That's because Riku is actually outside where Sora is now. He also found himself in Organization 13's world, and after wandering around, found Sora suspending in a cursed sleep. His attempt to wake Sora is interrupted as a strange nightmare in the form of a figure in a black coat forms itself from Sora's dreams and attacks. Riku defeats this threat, and is now taunted by the voice of Ansem. Ansem declares Sora's heart is now claimed by the darkness, and Riku himself is lost. He explains that since the beginning, Riku himself has only been traveling inside a dream within a dream, more specifically, Sora's dreams within the dream worlds. In fact, the sigil on his back the entire time is not the mark of a Dream Eater by mere coincidence, as all this time, Riku has been acting as a Dream Eater in Sora's dreams this whole time. Riku reminds Ansem that he was once a Keyblade wielder as Xehanort, only turned to darkness, which is similar to Riku now. In fact, he now resolves himself to a new journey. That is to say, he cannot lock away the darkness, master the darkness, or reject the darkness, then now his new work must be to consume the darkness and return it to light. They clash, and Riku wins again, and finds himself in the world that never was. Back in Sora's dream, he runs into another figure who unveils himself to be his nobody, Roxas. Roxas somberly tells Sora that it's possible this situation could have been reversed, but Sora is so important for all the hearts connected to his own, not to mention those within his heart. Roxas is still a little bitter for being a nobody, but Sora confidently tells him that he's been an individual this whole time, and has his own separate memories. Roxas warmingly now connects to Sora and imparts to Sora all of the memories he had, both from his tragic time in the organization and briefly in Twilight Town. Then, Sora snaps back to his dream form and hears Riku's warnings again. He then chases down images of Kairi and Riku, who change into Master Aqua and Terra, whom Sora is now meeting for the first time. Suddenly, Ventus's memories and heart within Sora speak out in form, but the reunion is brief as again, Riku's voice snaps him out of the illusion. Now reliving a memory from when he was 4 years old, Sora remembers how he did indeed meet Aqua so long ago, but this memory is also interrupted by now Ansem, who pushes Sora into a deeper sleep. Xigbar welcomes Sora again, but admits that while they put him into sleep, all the memory flashes Sora went through were actually all from his own heart. Sora points out that he doesn't believe that nobodies actually lack hearts like they claim from what he's seen, and both Xigbar and Xemnas confess that's mostly true. As they found out, even banished from the body, a heart will try to replace itself at every opportunity. In conclusion, because of hearts, a separation of body into heartless and nobody is always temporary. Sora then asks why all the lies, and Xigbar explains it's because the original purpose of Organization 13 was to prepare 13 vessels into turning into Xehanort. They then state they figured that there would be problems with this plan, and so had a backup plan ready the whole time. Sora admits that he was never the Keyblade's chosen, and knows that he's only strong because of the many bonds he and his hearts connected to him, but is proud to be a small part of the greater purpose for those the Keyblade did choose. He and Xemnas fight, and while Sora wins, he only succeeds in exhausting himself for young Xehanort to come in and make Sora the 13th needed vessel for darkness. Now, as his heart sinks into darkness, Ventus's Keyblade armor suddenly equips itself around Sora at the last minute. Meanwhile, Riku enters the organization's headquarters and makes his way to the meeting room. He spots Sora but is stopped by young Xehanort, who expresses how both Riku and Roxas were failed candidates. He reveals the rules of time travel to Riku that has enabled this all to be done, but is interrupted as Mickey warps in and stops time just long enough to rescue both Riku and Sora to get out. However, young Xehanort himself is a seasoned time traveler, and not only resists the time stop, but also traps Riku in his own pocket dimension. They fight, and Riku edges out a win to break free. Unfortunately, the time effect is now done, and Master Xehanort is finally back. Xehanort recounts the story of the original Kingdom Hearts and Keyblade, and reminds Mickey of the futility of his fight. As the inevitability of a second Keyblade war is nigh, Xehanort moves to combine his 13 Dark Selves and prepare the Keyblade properly this time. At the last second, Lee comes in to save Sora from becoming a Dark Vessel and helps to protect him, even from his old friend Aiza. Even Donald and Goofy come in to save Mickey and Riku. All of this has succeeded in stalling for time long enough to prevent the fusion of darkness, but only for a short while. Back at Yen Sid's tower, Sora's heart is still sleeping, but Yen Sid states that Riku, having unlocked the 7 sleeping worlds from within Sora's dream, can now still dive again into Sora's dreams and unlock his own sleeping heart. Riku agrees and finds Sora in Ventus's Keyblade armor, consumed by the nightmare darkness. Fighting and dispelling that, Sora sinks again into darkness, leaving his Kingdom Key behind. Picking up the Keyblade intended for him all along, Riku unlocks Sora's sleeping heart. He then finds himself deeper in Sora's heart, which takes the form of the Destiny Island, where he turns and sees Roxas behind him, who asks him a question of the heart. He is then met by Ventus for the first time, whom he initially mistakes for Roxas, but then corrects himself. Finally, he's met by Xiii, whom he has met before, but forgot once she died. All 3 people connected in Sora's heart ask Riku the same questions of the heart that Sora was asked at the very beginning of Sora's journey. Next, a data version of Ansem the Wise talks to Riku and shares with him the research data he left behind in Sora's heart. He states it should be a clue to retrieving lost hearts, and was best left with Sora, as he's the only person to ever regain his body as a Heartless without destroying his nobody, and that strength may be what they can use to then retrieve the people connected to Sora as well. After all, the hearts of Roxas, Xiii, and Ventus still lay within Sora, and the hearts of those connected to them are strong bonds that Sora can likely use to rescue them. Hearing that Sora is awake, Riku opens a keyhole in Sora's inner heart and leaves. Back in Yen Sid's tower, Sora is truly awake and never better. With the test and trials completed, the 2 now await the results of the exam. Yen Sid thanks everyone and apologizes for failing to foresee the traps and dangers. In the coming times ahead, a new Keyblade Master must be present, and while both Sora and Riku performed admirably, Riku took the extra step to dive in again and successfully unlocked Sora's heart when he was still trapped. For all this, Riku is now granted the title of Master. Sora is still excited to hear the news, and Lee expresses his interest in growing as well, surprising all of them by materializing his own Keyblade. Mission accomplished, Sora states that he has some unfinished business as well, and more practice to be had to become a master himself, and leaves, heading over to Traverse Town. Having just been unlocked from sleep, Sora is overjoyed to see all the Dream Eater friends he made there still present. Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance concludes with Mickey and Yen Sid assessing a situation and determine that even if they avoid finding 7 Guardians of Light to fight the 13 Darknesses, then Xehanort can just go after the Princesses of Light again, and they would be spread too thin to protect them after all. With war inevitable, it's actually a smarter move to just raise as many Guardians of Light as they can, filling up at least their quota of 7. On cue, Riku comes in from an errand from Master Yen Sid, retrieving their most recent Keyblade-wielding recruit, Kairi. Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance is the coming fruition of Xehanort's plot, and the prelude to the next war of the Keyblade and Kingdom Hearts. It continues the series towards the next installment, Kingdom Hearts 3, and has enjoyed the success of selling close to 1.5 million copies worldwide.